Something happened in the silver market right after the Fed's latest decision, and almost nobody in the mainstream financial world said a word about it. The cameras were pointed at the wrong thing. Everyone was watching the announcement, parsing the language, arguing about what the next move might be. And while all of that noise filled the air, silver did something quietly, in the background, that matters far more than any headline you were handed. If you own silver right now, or gold, or you have been thinking about it while your retirement savings sit mostly in paper, then this is about you. This is about what you actually own, whether the thing you think you're holding is really there, and why the people who profit from your confusion would very much prefer you never look too closely. I'm going to walk you through the real mechanics, the part the financial channels skip, and by the end, you'll understand exactly why what silver did was the tell, not the sideshow. Here's the concrete thing to sit with first, and it has nothing to do with any price on any given day. Silver in the paper market and silver you can actually hold in your hand are not the same size. On the major exchange where the price of silver is effectively set, there is a mountain of paper contracts, promises to deliver metal, stacked far higher than the pile of deliverable metal actually sitting in the vaults behind them. There are many paper ounces circulating for every single ounce registered and ready to be delivered. That gap is the whole story. Hold on to it, because everything else in this video comes back to it. Now, let me tell you why that matters, and why the timing around a Fed decision makes it sharper, not softer. Most people believe that when they buy silver exposure, somewhere out there a corresponding bar of real silver exists with their name on it. For a large share of the market, that simply is not true. What trades all day, what moves the quoted price up and down, is mostly paper, contracts, claims, bookkeeping entries that can be created almost without limit, because writing another promise costs nothing compared to mining, refining, and vaulting another real bar. And when the cost of holding those paper positions changes, when the Fed shifts the entire backdrop under interest rates, the paper can lurch around violently, even though not 1 ounce of real metal has moved. That's the trick the big banks and the trading desks do not want you to understand. They set the price in the paper arena, where they have every advantage, and then they let you believe that price reflects the true scarcity of the physical thing. It does not. The price you see is a price for promises, and promises, unlike metal, can be conjured out of thin air. Let me make this vivid with the mechanism itself, because this is where it gets real. Picture the vault behind the exchange. The silver in there is sorted into categories. Some of it is registered, meaning it is available right now to settle contracts and be delivered. The rest is eligible, meaning it's stored there, but its owner has not made it available for delivery. It belongs to someone who is holding it, not lending it out. Now, against that registered pile, the deliverable pile, stack up all the contracts that could, in theory, demand delivery. The number of paper claims towers over the metal that's actually on offer. If even a modest fraction of those claim holders ever calmly said, "No, thank you. I don't want to roll my paper. I don't want cash. I want the actual bars shipped to me," the vault could not honor them all. There isn't enough registered metal to go around. It's arithmetic. And this is not some fringe conspiracy. This is how the market is openly structured. The system runs smoothly precisely because almost nobody stands for delivery. The overwhelming majority of participants are speculators, hedgers, traders who never want a single physical ounce. They want to bet on the price and settle in cash. So the fiction holds. The paper and the metal float along as if they were the same size, because the moment of truth almost never comes. But almost never is not never. And the structure has no defense against the day a meaningful number of holders decide they'd rather have the real thing. Now, you might be thinking, this has been going on for years, so why should I care about it now? Fair question. And the answer is that the balance underneath the surface has been quietly shifting in one direction. The registered pile, the deliverable metal actually available to settle contracts, has been drawn down. Not all at once, not in a way that makes headlines, but steadily, as metal gets pulled out of the system and doesn't come back. Every time a large holder stands for delivery and moves the bars off the exchange and into a private vault, that metal is gone from the deliverable pool. It's not available to back the next 1,000 paper contracts. So the coverage, the amount of real metal standing behind each claim, has been getting thinner. The mountain of paper hasn't shrunk. The pile of metal underneath it has. That's the direction of travel, and it's the opposite of comforting. There's a signal from the other side of the world that tells you the physical tightness is real and not just a story. In Asia, in the major physical market where real metal changes hands for real industrial use, silver has at times traded at a notable premium to the Western price, sometimes a steep one. Think about what a premium like that actually means. It means buyers over there are willing to pay more for metal in hand than the paper price in London or New York says it's worth. When the physical market pays up over the paper market, that's the physical world telling you the paper price is too low, that real bars are harder to get than the screen admits. And there have been stretches where that same market slipped into what traders call backwardation, where metal for immediate delivery costs more than metal promised later, which is the market screaming that it wants the real thing now and can't easily find it. Those are the fingerprints of genuine scarcity, and they don't show up in the headline price you're shown. Think about what that means for you, sitting on retirement savings you spent a lifetime building. If you own the paper version, a fund, a certificate, an unallocated account, you are one of the promises in that towering stack. You are trusting that when it matters, when you actually want out, the metal will be there. But you are standing in a line that is many times longer than the amount of metal at the front of it. In a calm market, that's fine. In a stressed market, in a rush, being a promise instead of an owner is exactly where you do not want to be. Want to pause here, because this is the first moment where I have to be honest with you about what's at stake and what you can actually do about it. This is the fear part, and I'm not going to dress it up. If you're holding a six-figure retirement account and your metals exposure is all paper, you have less protection than you think. So here's something worth knowing. Central banks around the world have been buying real, physical gold at a record pace, hand over fist, more than 1,000 tons a year for 3 years running, roughly double what they bought the decade before. They are not buying paper claims. They are moving the actual bars into their own vaults, where no one else can touch them. They understand the difference between owning metal and owning a promise. And here is the part the industry rarely spells out plainly for ordinary people. There is a perfectly legal way for you to do the very same thing inside the retirement account you already have. You can move a portion of your savings into physical gold and physical silver, held in a self-directed precious metals IRA, without triggering taxes and without penalties, because it's a transfer, not a withdrawal. This is not some exotic loophole for insiders. If you have $100,000 or more in any retirement account, a 401k, a traditional IRA, this is available to you. If you want to understand how it works, we've put together a free guide that lays it out in plain English. If you're watching this on your TV, just scan the QR code on your screen. If you're on your phone or your computer, go to jeffreedguide.com. It costs you nothing, and it explains exactly how retirees are making this move. Now let me get back to why the timing matters so much. Because a Fed decision is precisely the kind of event that can light the fuse on that gap between paper and metal. When policymakers shift the backdrop, when a divided Fed makes a call and the market has to reprice everything, the pressure lands first on the paper market. And the exchanges have a tool they've used before to manage that pressure. They can change the cost of holding a position. They can raise the margin, the amount of money you must put up to keep your paper contract open. When that happens, leveraged traders who never wanted metal in the first place are suddenly forced to sell. Not because silver became less valuable, but because holding the bet got more expensive overnight. We have watched silver drop by roughly a third in a matter of days after such a change, while nothing about the actual supply or demand for the physical metal shifted at all. The exchange moved the cost of holding, and the price of the metal took the blow. That is the paper market showing you its true nature. So when I tell you silver did something after the Fed that nobody noticed, this is the lens. Forget the exact tick. Watch the relationship. Watch whether physical metal is getting tighter even as the paper price gets shoved around. Watch whether the deliverable pile in the vault is shrinking while the claims against it are not. Because that divergence, the physical getting scarcer while the paper stays abundant, is the pressure building inside the system. And it builds silently, because the quoted price, the thing everyone stares at, is a paper price that can be managed. The scarcity underneath is real, and it does not show up on the screen until it's too late to get in front of it. Here's the part almost nobody gets to, and I want you to stay with me, because this is where it stops being theory. Silver is not just a monetary metal you tuck away. It's an industrial metal that gets used up. It goes into electronics, into solar panels, into 1,000 small applications. And in most of those uses, it's dispersed in tiny quantities and never economically recovered. It's consumed and gone. Gold is hoarded. Almost every ounce ever mined still exists somewhere. Silver is different. Silver is burned. And the world has been running through more silver than it produces. a structural deficit stretched across year after year, with above-ground stockpiles drawn down to cover the gap. So the physical pile isn't just static against a mountain of paper, it's actively being eaten away from the industrial side, while the claims against it keep multiplying. Put those two facts together, and you see the trap the paper market is sitting on. On one side, an ever-shrinking supply of real, deliverable metal, drained by industry that must have it, and by savers around the world who are quietly taking delivery and pulling bars out of the system for good. On the other side, a towering, elastic stack of paper promises that can be printed as fast as anyone cares to write them. Those two things cannot drift apart forever. At some point, the promises have to reconcile with the metal, and there is far less metal than there are promises. When that reconciliation comes, it doesn't come gently. We've seen this movie before, in a smaller form. There have been episodes where a crowd tried to break the paper market by force, where people organized and said, let's all buy silver at once and squeeze the shorts. And it didn't work the way they hoped, for one simple reason. Most of them bought paper. And when you buy a paper claim, you don't drain the vault. You just hand the desks a reason to write another paper claim to sell you. Buying promises to fight a promise problem only makes more promises. The paper market can absorb an ocean of that kind of buying, because creating supply is free. The only thing the paper market genuinely cannot manufacture is the metal itself. So the pressure that actually matters, the pressure that can't be printed away, is physical demand for delivery. Quiet, patient, one bar at a time, taken out and kept. That's the pressure the desks watch nervously, and it's the one they'd rather you never learn to apply. And go back to the last time silver approached the ceiling that has capped it, the level it has failed to break through more than once across the decades. Each time the metal got close, the paper market found a way to take the air out of it, and each time the people who got hurt were the ones holding leveraged paper bets that could be squeezed on cost, while the people who simply owned metal outright and refused to be shaken loose kept their position and their peace of mind. In a fight between a promise and a bar, over a long enough horizon, the bar wins, but only for the person who actually holds it. And who profits from you not understanding this? The desks that write the paper. The institutions that earn their living on the churn, on your buying and selling, on your fear when the price gets slammed, and your capitulation when you dump your metal into a manufactured shakeout. A frightened retiree selling real silver into a paper-driven dip is their best customer. The financial media won't explain the paper-to-metal gap to you, because the whole comfortable arrangement depends on most people never asking the one question that breaks it. Where is the actual metal, and how much of it is really there? They don't want you counting the bars. They want you watching the ticker. Let me be very clear and very fair with you, because I'm not here to frighten you into anything. I cannot promise you a price, and I won't. I don't know what silver will do next month or next year. The metal is volatile, genuinely volatile, and it can fall hard and stay down longer than feels reasonable, especially when the paper market gets aggressive. This is a case built on structure and history, not a guarantee, and nothing I'm saying is personal financial advice for your specific situation. What I'm describing is a setup, a vulnerability inside the system, not a dated prediction. But a vulnerability like this doesn't need a date to matter. It just needs you to be positioned before it resolves rather than after. Which brings me to what you should actually think about doing with your own position, in principle, not as a prescription. The first thing is to know what you own. Is it metal, or is it a promise? If it's a promise, understand that you're standing in that long line. The second thing is to own the real thing for the portion you truly want protected, so that no exchange, no margin change, no paper game can separate you from it. The third thing is to size it sanely, so that a sharp drop, and there will be sharp drops, can never force you to sell at the worst possible moment. The people who get hurt in this metal aren't usually the ones who are wrong about the long run. They're the ones who were right but bought too much, got scared in a shakeout, and sold the bottom to the very desks that engineered it. Don't be that person. Own it clean, size it so you can sleep, and never sell into the panic. Now here is the recognition moment, the part one most want you to feel. The smart money already sees all of this. The central banks moving 1,000-ton piles of gold into their own vaults, the large holders quietly standing for delivery and pulling metal out of the system, the institutions that understand the difference between an ounce and a claim, they are already positioned. They're not waiting for permission. The mainstream, the pension funds, the financial press, the ordinary saver being told everything is fine, they have not caught on yet. That gap between what the informed few are doing and what the crowd believes is exactly where you are right now, and it will not stay open. By the time the paper to metal problem becomes obvious, by the time it leads the news, and every advisor suddenly recommends physical metal, the easy part will already be behind us. The metal will already have been repriced. Nobody is going to call you and tell you the window is closing. Nobody sends you an invitation to be early. Being early feels quiet and uncertain and a little lonely, right up until the moment it feels obvious to everyone, and by then it's late. So let me answer the question I open with, plainly. What did silver do after the Fed that nobody noticed? It didn't do anything on the screen worth a headline. What it did was reveal, once again, that the price you're shown is a paper price, managed and pushed around by an event, while underneath it the real metal keeps getting scarcer and the promises against it keep multiplying. The move you were supposed to watch was never the tick. It was the widening distance between the claims and the bars. That's the thing hiding in plain sight. That's what nobody pointed at. And now you can't unsee it. If you've stayed with me all the way to here, you're exactly the kind of person this last part is for. For those of you with $100,000 or more in a retirement account who want to think this through carefully, we offer a free one-on-one educational web conference. It's not a sales pitch and there's no obligation. It's a conversation with a specialist who can walk you through how the physical precious metals IRA works for your specific situation, how the transfer avoids taxes and penalties, and whether it even makes sense for you. Just mention that you watched this full video. And here's the honest reason to do it now rather than someday. The best time to make a calm, deliberate decision like this is precisely when nothing feels urgent, when the price isn't spiking and the crowd isn't panicking, because that's when you can move thoughtfully instead of emotionally. Once it's obvious, the calm is gone. So if you're watching this on your TV, scan the QR code on your screen. If you're on your phone or your computer, go to jeffreedguide.com. Bring your questions. The consultation is free, the guide is free, and the understanding is yours to keep either way. Because in the end, this was never really about a Fed meeting or a day's price move. It was about the quiet distance between what you think you own and what is actually there, standing behind it, in the vault. Count the promises, count the bars. When you finally see how far apart those two numbers are, you understand why silver's real story is the one nobody wanted you to notice. And you understand why the people who saw it early made sure they were holding the metal, not the promise, long before the rest of the world went looking for it.